1980s, the decade of the mullet, the decade of the shell suit, but also the golden age for arcade games. Being able to play arcade conversions in the comfort of your own home was great, but it never lived up to the experience or the excitement of playing them how they were originally intended, on an arcade machine. The 80s was stuffed full of classic arcade games. No other decade comes close in terms of influence on my life as a gamer. It wasn't only the games though that had a profound effect on my life. It was the places I played the games, the people we played with, the memories of times long since past, but forever live on in my memory. From bustling arcades to a local chip shop, from my local sports centre to my granddad's old social club, arcade games hold so many memories for me. I'm Ash from Player One, press start, and today I'm going to be sharing my favourite memories of the 80s arcade games I used to play back in the day. My first memory of Pacman wasn't a good one, it was quite forgettable to be honest. I was about 5 years old and my first impressions were, this is a bit shite. That's only because I was playing it on the Atari 2600. It wasn't till a few years later when I spotted the arcade version in my local chip shop, The Seagull. Still going strong today, still get me fish and chips from there. Pacman Atari 2600 was an abomination compared to the arcade version. This was fast, fluid, colourful and a complete eye-opener of how much better arcade versions were when compared to their home computer counterparts. Growing up in the 80s, almost every Saturday was spent with the main man in my life, my granddad, and a bunch of his ragtag OAP bowls mates. Once the competition was all done, the old gents gathered in a club with a players' buffet and obligatory piss-up. Whilst everyone was getting sozzled, nestled in a little corner of the club was Centipede. With my panda pop in hand, I would spend ages memorised with the bright flashing graphics of Centipede. Centipede is the first arcade game I ever played and I loved it. I think for me though, it's the memory of where I was and who I was with that brings back the fondest memories. My granddad passed last year unfortunately. He's dearly missed, but I'll always remember my times at the Koza Club. Rest in peace Grandad, love ya. Sticking with the Koza Club lawn bowl setting, about a year or so later they replaced Centipede with Donkey Kong. Cue many hours and hundreds of 10p's thrown into this as my granddad sat in the background drinking, either celebrating or commiserating that day's bowls win. This game brings back so many amazing happy memories of time spent with my granddad at the Koza Club. If I was ever short on spare change to play, the owner of the club would throw money my way if I went round glass collecting. Couldn't do that these days, health and safety and all that. Times were a lot different back then. Moon Patrol is a weird one. It's not a great game at all, but this isn't about the games being great, it's about the best memories we had whilst playing them. I'm not one for hot weather at all, so whilst on holiday on the beautiful island of Mallorca, I was either stuck under an umbrella in the shade or back at the hotel bar playing Moon Patrol. I must have only been about 6 and completely unchaperoned. Just couldn't get away with that today. Anyways, Moon Patrol was in the hotel and I realised every time I put my pesetas into the machine, they would drop straight out the bottom, but also give me the credit. After further investigation and sticking my hand up the bottom of the machine, I found that not only was I getting my pesetas back, but I was getting all the money that people had put into the machine that day. So it turned into a nice little earner for me. Result. Dragon's Lair is a tale about a young, silly boy throwing money away trying to play a game that was more like an interactive animation button presser than a game. It looked amazing though, didn't it? So every time the travelling funfair would arrive in my town, I would always stroll into the arcade and throw money away, attempting to figure out and fail at Dragon's Lair. It was a rubbish game, but stands the test of time due to what it was and how it looked. I'm recalling this game because it takes me back to a time when fun fairs actually had arcades, as well as rides. Go to any fair today and they're just not the same. Overpriced, hardly any rides, and most criminal of all, there's no arcade games. The old days were just the best. I used to go away a lot with my younger cousins and their parents, always to some run-down Pontins or Butlins. For the overseas viewers, Pontins and Butlins are the equivalent of a run-down holiday camp. So I'd be stuck with my aunt and uncle for a week, and I think I was only there to babysit on the evenings while they're out getting pissed, to be honest. My only refuge and respite from these Muppets was escaping to the arcades. One year at Pontins in Morecambe, I came across this beauty. The Star Wars films were a massive part of my childhood, so to be able to control an X-Wing strafing the Death Star was just insane to me. It's great that video games can be a vehicle for escapism, and my god did I need it being shacked up with these misfits for a whole week. I still have regular competitions with my mates on track and field. It's so simplistic but as addictive today as it was over 40 years ago. My greatest memories of this game come from spending time with my granddad again, this time at his local Labour social club. There it is, still going strong today. This time, while my granddad was drinking the day away with his domino buddies, myself and all the other grandchildren would spend the day bashing the buttons on this till our fingers were almost broke and blistered. I love that us kids were just left alone to do as we please, and track and field was the perfect way to while away the day with mates. There seems to be a recurring theme in this video. The grown-ups are always off getting pissed up and us kids are just off doing our own thing. My memories of this game are no different. The Three Seas Football Club is the location this time, and 1942 is the game. After every footy training session, it was back to the bar, alcohol for the parents, panda pops and loose change for the kids to play 1942. Cue some real funny moments and brilliant banter with all the lads vying for the bragging rights to get their best score. Great memories of this one, good times. So I'm from Birmingham, as you've no doubt guessed from my thick, Brummie accent. I'm also half Welsh too, with ties to Barry, a la Gavin and Stacey fame.
Oh, what's occurring?
We'd frequent Barry Island every year, and I'd always be camped in the arcades as usual. One year, a new machine arrived with full-on car cabinet and driver's seat. Outrun was the game, and wow, what a game it was. Full steering control with a wheel in your Ferrari Testarossa, and my god was it fast. There were queues to get on this thing, everyone wanted in, and because we're talking 1986, it was only 10p a go. This was a game that everyone who experienced it fondly recalls. They just don't make them like they used to, do they? Tucked away on a balcony in my local sports centre was Wonderboy. Me and my best mates, Simon and David, had a blast playing this. While everyone down below was getting hot and sweaty playing sports stuff, we were up on the balcony jumping boulders on a skateboard. This game was a lot of fun, but I remember the game not for its gameplay or graphics, but the ordeal we had to go through to even get to play it. You see, you weren't allowed in the place unless you were playing sports. So we'd loiter around the front of the building and wait for the staff to leave the front desk before making a mad dash upstairs, getting as much playtime in we could before the staff realised what we were up to and kicked us out. Good times, man, good times. So, being half Welsh, I spent a lot of time in beautiful Wales. One of my favourite places was Fontegary Caravan Park. God, they had the best arcade back in the 80s. And as with my other stories on this video, I spent most of my time whiling away in the arcade playing the games. I remember Afterburner only for making me feel really sick after trying it on the deluxe moving cabinet. A great experience, but it's my memories of the amazing arcade where it was housed that I'm most fond of. It's long since gone now, but that place was a staple of my childhood. We still go back to Fontigary and the kids love it, but to me, it's just not the same without the arcade. Back to Pontins with my arsehole aunt and her family of spoiled, bratty kids. Honestly, I don't know why I went away with them as much as I did. I didn't like them. I think maybe my mum was just getting rid of me for a week's peace. Anyways, the silver lining was my introduction to Double Dragon, a brilliant beat 'em up I discovered whilst trying to evade the family. I loved playing this. It was a great game. The best bit is the friends I made whilst playing and hanging out with them instead of the Clampets / Adams family, which really made my time there a lot more bearable. Rastan is a game I always used to play when the travelling funfair would return to my hometown of Chelmsley Wood. You can take the man from the wood, but you can't take the wood from the man. For me, Rastan was a video game version of one of my favourite films of the 80s, Conan the Barbarian, and I loved it. Back in the days where arcade machines were only 10p and funfairs were a bit dodgy and iffy and ran by some unscrupulous, unsavoury, shady characters, you knew you'd had a good time when you got home to your mum moaning that you had a couple of goldfishes in some see-through bags. Ah, the memories. One of my all-time favourite childhood films, Robocop. What a film, yeah? I never knew they made a game of this until I happened upon it when I went on a trip to the Black Country Museum. The coach had broken down at a small local services. It was just more like a house, to be honest. And there it was, Robocop. All the spending money we had to spend at the Black Country Museum was thrown into this, and it was so worth it. I remember saving up to get the Commodore 64 version and being properly disappointed as it was pants compared to the arcade version. A great little game and great memories of wasting all my spending money playing Robocop at the services. Love it. Birmingham city centre was a pretty rough and dangerous place to go out for a 9-year-old back in the 80s. You just wouldn't let your kids do it these days. But we used to, and nestled in a little shop at the world famous Bullring Market was Chase HQ. Outrun, but with a cops and robbers twist. This was a great little game. No sit down cabinet, just a stand up machine with a wheel and some pedals. Again, I picked this up on the Commodore 64 and the difference honestly was night and day. It was shite. Some games you just have to play the arcade version, yeah? Back when kids used to go out and actually do activities instead of sitting at home in front of their many screens, kids used to do a thing called ice skating. It involved putting some bladed boots on your feet and skating round a rink and trying to walk away with the least amount of injuries possible. Golden Axe, a plate of soggy chips and a flat coke were our reward for braving a possible concussion or severed finger or two. Golden Axe is a class game for its day. Great graphics, great characters, great combat, and the perfect way to end a day's frivolities on the ice. Job done. My final game in this video, and the final time I mention the awful human being my auntie. And it's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This time stranded at a Butlins, not a Pontins, and once again sought refuge in the arcade. Not only did I find this wonder of a game, but for reasons unknown, the machine had malfunctioned and was displaying infinite credits. With it being 4-player, I quickly flagged down 3 other kids and we proceeded to rinse the game and finished it on our first playthrough. Just as I'm telling you in this video, I'm sure the other 3 players will be recanting this tale to their grandchildren for decades to come. That was the last holiday I went on with that lot. Good bloody riddance. And that was my list of my most memorable arcade games of the 80s. I've really enjoyed making this video and thinking back on some amazing childhood memories with my friends and family, especially the times with my granddad. Every game on this list has their merits, but it's the emotional response they invoke in me when I think of where I was and who I was with. I hope you've enjoyed this video as much as I did making it, and I'd love to hear your thoughts or memories of your favourite arcade game moments. Feel free to post in the comments and hit the like button, and don't forget to visit my channel, Player One Press Start, and subscribe for more video game content. And I'll see you on the next video. Bye guys.
Videos and I